Hello all. Today we shall be talking about art of Sumeria 4000 BC to 2000 BC. Let us understand the objectives of this lesson. Acquaint the student about Sumerian art in the larger context of art history. Acquire the basic vocabulary, concepts and criteria for understanding, interpreting and analyzing Sumerian art. Acquaint about the significance of Sumerian art. Understand the important works of the era. Know about the stylistic features of the movement. Learn and understand the relationship between the arts and the times during which they were created. Encounter significant works of Sumerian art. Let us look at the contents of the chapter. After introducing you to the geographical boundaries and other related aspects, we will look at the contributions of Sumerian art and architecture to the world. We will then look in the Sumerian writing system, then the architectural aspects in the Ziggurat and some relevant aspects. We will also look into the religious aspect of the arts. A detailed mention shall be made of the Akkadian dynasty, including Ur and Lagash. The cities and city-states that developed along the rivers of southern Mesopotamia between about 3500 and 2340 BC are known collectively as Sumer. It is known that Sumerians migrated from the north, but their origins are unknown. Sumerians inhabited mostly southern Mesopotamia from about 4000 BC to about 2000 BC. This area was prone to violent weather conditions and unexpected floodings. Since they were at the mercy of nature, they began to fear nature and treated the forces of nature with great reverence. The Sumerians became a highly religious society. Religion provided a sense of order and reason. They saw everything around them as the magic of spirits, magic being the only explanation they had for how things worked. These spirits were their gods, believing that the gods had given them all they had. The Sumerians saw the intentions of their god as goods and believing that their gods had great powers and controlled their world. The Sumerians, they called themselves the black-headed ones, had by the middle of the 4th millennium BC become one of the most socially and technologically sophisticated peoples on earth. They farmed the arid land with canal water from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, constructed cities and large buildings, and were the first people we know of to write. They were perhaps the first even to organize their society into distinct social classes. Let us look into the contributions of Sumerian art and architecture to the world. The need for mass production of pottery led to the invention of the potter's wheel. Sumerians invented the wagon wheel and the plow. They invented the cuneiform writing on clay tablets. The Sumerians employed a system of counting that is based on 60 and a circle of 360 degrees. The system was used to measure time. It was a basis for calculating like our decimal system. It allowed for multiplication tables, square roots, cubes. The Sumerians undertook the awesome task of building embankments to control the floodwaters of the Euphrates River. Gradually, they drained the marshes and dug irrigation canals and ditches. Large-scale cooperation was needed to build the irrigation works, keep them in repair, and apportion the water. This need gave rise to government and laws. This great change in living habits brought about as a city-based society held together by economic enterprises. Domesticating animals such as sheep, goats, oxen, donkeys and dogs had begun. Before 3000 BC, the Sumerians had learned to make tools and weapons by smelting copper with tin to make bronze, a much harder metal than copper alone. Talking about Sumerian writing system, let us proceed further. The writing system of the Sumerian is one of the oldest known writing system in the world. The clay tablets on which they wrote were very durable as they were baked. Their writing style, similar to the Egyptian hieroglyphs, was conducive to the wet clay and was written in forms such as a line or triangular wedges made with a corner of a reed with a three-corner end. They did not use curved lines, and therefore pictures lost their forms and became symbols, abstract ones. Cuneiforms, from the Latin cunus meaning wedge, then became a set of symbols that came to be associated with the sound of the thing, then the idea of that thing. Each sign then represented a syllable. However, the form of writing could never evolve into an alphabet system. Let us talk about ziggurat. The ziggurat is one of the most impressive surviving archaeological remains of the Sumerians. The huge stepped structures with a temple or shrine on top. The first ziggurats may have developed by the practice of repeated rebuilding at sacred site. Elevating the buildings also protected the shrines from flooding. The floodplains showcased the wealth and power of the ruler of that city and also functioned symbolically as lofty bridges between the earth and the heavens, a meeting place for humans and their gods. They were erected in the center of the city and were the basis for the temples to the state's chief god. For instance, the ziggurat at Uruk extended over an area of 500,000 square feet. The platform built to support its crowning shrine was 40 feet high. Let us look at the religious aspect in the arts. This vase is a classic example of how religion dominates the arts of the Sumerian period. In the top register, a goddess, not visible here, possibly Inanna herself, receives a figure with basket of fruit. In the next register, nude man walk from right to left, also bearing offerings. In the third register, ramps alternating with eves march around the vase in the opposite direction. Barley stalks alternate with dead palms below. Several conventions generally recognize features of representation. Evident here remain characteristic of ancient Near Eastern art. Although the figures are stocky and modeled three-dimensionally, they occupy a flat space, which is partly defined by their poses. Legs, heads are in profile, the torsos turned slightly, and eyes are fronted, creating a composite or synthesized view of the human form. There is no indication of space extending back behind the figures, who walk as if on a thin ledge. In the top register, figures and objects seem suspended in mid-air. Let us now look at the lyre from the royal tomb of Ur. At Ur, the Sumerian site of the ancient city. The English archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley, 1880 to 1960, discovered the royal cemetery. The gold objects found in the burial included chariots, harps, sculptures, headdresses, and jewelry. The restored elegant lyre soundbox from Ur indicates not only the enjoyment of music and the use of musical instruments, but also the superb craftsmanship of early Sumerian artists. The significance of the gold-bearded bull's head and the inlay decoration at the front of the box is uncertain, but it is likely that they served as ritual purpose and had mythical meaning. The head was combined with a stylized human beard of semi-precious dark blue lapis lazuli, illustrating the ancient Near Eastern taste for combinations of species. On one register, a seated donkey plucks the strings of a bull lyre, similar to the instrument on which this set of images originally appeared, stabilized by a standing bear, while a fox accompanies him with a rattle. On the register above, upright animals bring food and drink for a feast. A hyena, assuming the role of a butcher with a knife in his belt, carries a table piled high with meat. A lamb follows, toting a large jar and powering vessel. The top and bottom registers are particularly intriguing in relation to the epic of Gilgamesh. On another level, because we know lyres were used in funeral rites, this imagery may depict a heroic image of the deceased in the top register and a funeral banquet in the realm of the dead at the bottom. The animals shown are the traditional guardians of the gateway through which the deceased had first to pass. Cuneiform tablets preserve songs of mourning, perhaps chanted by priests accompanied by lyres at funerals. Let us now talk about the Akkadian dynasty and their art. During the Sumerian period, a tribe known as Akkadians settled north of Uruk. They adopted Sumerian culture but spoke a Semitic language under the tutelage of powerful military and political figure Sargon, circa 2332. Most of the Mesopotamia was conquered and ruled for more than half a century. The figure is the earliest major work of Holocaust copper sculpture known. The huge curled beard and elaborately braided hair indicate both royalty and ideal male appearance. The command of this work lies in the self-confident facial features emerging from a framework of stylized hair. The eye sockets would originally have been inlaid with precious stones. At the back of the head, the hair is bound in a bun and elaborately designed in a regular arrangement of surface patterns. Large curved eyebrows meet on the bridge of the assertive nose. A striking V-shape frames the lower face in the form of a beard made of spiraling curls. In this head, the energy of rhythm and stylizations combined with an organic facial structure to produce an air of regal determination. The tale of Naram-Sin. Sargon's first grandson, Naram-Sin, recorded his victory over a mountain people, the Lulusian. In a commemorative stele stone maker, the stele proclaims the military, political and religious authority of Naram-Sin. He is defined as a god by the horned cap, and he dominates the scene by his large size and prominent position. His long beard is a conventional sign of virility and position as a ruler. Two defeated enemies are before the ruler, one praying for mercy and the other trying to pull a spear from his neck. Naram-Sin and his victorious followers march unhindered up the mountain while the defeated soldiers fall, denoting success, and downward movement denotes failure or death. The right side of a Naram-Sin is shown in keeping with Mesopotamian belief that a ruler's right side, including his right arm and right ear, had to be both intact and well formed for his state to prosper. Ur and Lagos. The Akkadian Empire fell around 2180 BC to the Kuti, a mountain people from the northwest. For a brief time, the Kuti controlled most of the Mesopotamian land. But ultimately, Sumerian people regained control of the region and expelled the Kuti in 2112 BC. Under the leadership of King Ornamu of Ur, reintroduced the Sumerian language and sponsored magnificent building campaigns, notably a ziggurat dedicated to the moon god Nana, also called Sin. the ziggurat of Ur. The new Sumerian period reached a peak under Ur-Nammu, the first king of its last important dynasty, the third dynasty of Ur. He supervised the construction of great ziggurat at Ur, a more complex one than Ur. 3 stages are constructed around a mud brick core and culminated in a shrine, which was accessible by a short stairway on the northeast side. The mud brick was faced with baked brick embedded in mortar made of bitumen, a type of asphalt, leading to a vertical gate which provided the only point of entry to the upper levels were 3 long stairways, each composed of 100 steps. The ziggurat walls curved gradually outward while sloping towards the center of the structure, which functioned aesthetically to reduce the rigidity of straight walls. The ancient Near Eastern preference for rounded sculptural shapes thus carried over into architectural design. One large Sumerian city-state remained independent throughout this period, Lagash, whose capital was Girsu, present-day Tello, Iraq. On the Tigris River, Gudea, the ruler, built and restored many temples, and within them, following a venerable Mesopotamian tradition, he placed votive statues representing himself as governor and embodiment of just rule. The statues are made of diorite, a very hard stone, and the difficulty of carving it may have prompted sculptors to use compact, simplified forms for the portraits. Or perhaps it was the desire for powerful, stylized images that prompted the choice of this important stone for this series of statues. 20 of them survived, making Gudea a familiar figure in the study of ancient Near Eastern art. The standard of Ur. Found in tomb 779 of the Royal Cemetery at Ur, where the leading families of Ur were buried. The standard of Ur is probably the most significant object found in terms of the history of art. The wooden box was inlaid with lapis lazuli shell and red limestone and is separated into 2 sides, which are usually referred to as the peace side and the war side. Each side is divided into 3 registers and read from left to right and bottom to top. The war side features a bottom register with 4S drawn, 4-wheeled war chariot crushing enemies who lay on the ground in the front of and beneath the animals. The artist suggests the acceleration of the S's by changing guitar gate. The second register has foot soldiers gathering up and leading away captured enemies. The top register shows the naked and degraded foes being brought to the king, who again has been made larger to show hierarchy.